America's last frontier is its inner cities. It's our last privilege for the Holy Ghost to make the inner cities the most responsible places in the nation. We've already been hurt. We've already had the loss of trust. We've already had the power of the destroyer touch. We already know what it is to think it can't be done. But it's time for the inner city to say, the gospel is preached to the poor. The gospel is preached to babies. The gospel is preached to young mothers. The gospel is preached to dads. The gospel is preached to old people. There's good news. God can make it work. We've transferred the thought of people's value to what they do. If you can make a three-point shot, you're worth something. If you can sell, you're worth something. If you can accomplish, you're worth something. But you're worth something if you can't do a thing today. You haven't found out what your call is. You're worth something today. You're worth something. You got a right to live alongside of a champion. Too much competition in our time. And what we're saying, the only people who have value is the top, and we'll skim off the cream because everything else ought to be thrown out. No, God is not saying that. He said all of you are worth something more than you can believe. How many churches find that it's in vogue, it's the right thing to do, to go ahead and to help somebody in a foreign land? And I'm really for that. But when you got people in every spectrum of life, and in this city there's people living as bad as any other place in the world, and it may not be the fault of government. It may not be something that we can put at the doorstep of another person. But we know this. When a doctor diagnoses, he's not looking for whose fault it is. He's asking, is there a disease here that I can cure? And there's a disease that can be cured in this hour when we realize that people are worth something. God, turn our spirits around. My dad didn't have any money, died when I was just in my 21st year, I believe. I didn't have an education that I would be really excited about at that time. I didn't have an experience that showed me how to make it in life. But you know what I had around about me? I had a whole lot of people who wanted me to make it. I had a lot of people around about me that wanted me to make it. There'd be people who would say, hey, why don't you go down to where I work? They're going to hire. Why don't you try that? That might work. There were people who just as soon I made it. There are people in this city today who are missing the fact that nobody really wants them to make it. Nobody really thinks they're going to make it. Listen, I tell you in this hour that God is for you, and it's time for the church to begin to realize it's our destiny to turn people around by the act of our will. Catherine Coleman was a woman that I admired. Most of you knew her who are older. A woman preacher. I don't have too many women preachers on my favorite list. My mom, Catherine Coleman. I just believe that leadership, first of all, is a responsibility of the male, and when you don't put the male in the responsibility, he vegetates and he loses his call. I just believe the Bible the way it's written, and so it's hard for me to change. But that's beside the point. One day, as she had been able to minister to a multitude, miracle after miracle happened. She found that the miracle that came through her didn't always seem to be the miracle that came to her. She had a heart problem, and she didn't know why. She went to see her doctor, and he loved her, cared for her, thought she was the most wonderful woman alive. Called her into his office and said, here's the x-rays. These are the tests. Said it doesn't look good. But with emotion in his eyes, he said, but I won't let you die. There's that which can come into the heart of people when they find something that's worth something. I won't let you die. And that's what's got to come back to the church. There was a time at the altar call, we wouldn't let people leave lost. We wouldn't let people stay backslid. We wouldn't let people do the wrong thing. We wouldn't let people leave their wives. We wouldn't let children leave their homes. We wouldn't let it happen. We said, I won't let you die. I won't let you die. I won't let you die. I know what it says, but there's something in me that's alive, and I won't let it happen. Driven down through this city this last week because of looking for other property. You get where you're like a mouse going through burrows. You go to work, you go home, you go to church, you go home. You get used to paths, and those paths lose their power in your life. And all of a sudden you find, for some reason, you find a new friend, or you find a new problem, or have another job, and you're going in different directions. Began to see the city all over again. This city hurts. This city's gone down a long ways in the last few years. There's just a whole lot of needs in this city, a whole lot of tears in the city, a whole lot of crying in this city, a whole lot of brokenness in the city. You can look and you can count it in the buildings. You can take the pulse of the buildings and you can see they're dead. They're not moving any longer. They're dead. There's nobody in there with life and vitality. And you look and you say, God, I don't want it to happen. 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 I want the gospel to be preached to the poor. I don't want it to happen. I know that we can't just say come to the church, but my God, may the church begin to put its arms around somebody who thinks he's not worth a plug nickel and say, oh yes you are, because God made you and he can heal you. He can change you. He can deliver you. He can transform your life. Woman was brought in the act of adultery. And the people who were her accusers wanted to make a theological statement out of it. Moses said we ought to stone such people. What do you say, Jesus? Jesus just stooped and wrote on the ground. Nobody knows what he wrote. Doesn't matter. That's why it's not recorded. But he turned to the woman and he said, where are your accusers? She said, I don't have any, Lord. That's the wonderful thing about the gospel. It gets rid of your accusers. And listen, your accusers sure tear you apart. They drag you into places of discouragement and despair that's worse than you can handle. There's many a man who's got married living in a broken world and he didn't know why he felt like running around. There's many a wife who didn't understand her feelings and emotions. We're not here today to prove how wonderful we are, but to